Hello, my name is Vera Patterson, and this is going to be my presentation for Black History Month. My presentation was brought to my attention just last week. Our most inspiring and significant history is buried so deep. There are countless examples of noteworthy accomplishments and untold events that relate to the history of blacks. There's an African proverb that says, until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter, meaning they be taking credit for what we've accomplished. Allow me to introduce to you Onesimus. There is very little recorded history about this man, Onesimus. The little that is known comes from the writings of his owner's diary. He was an enslaved African man owned by a Puritan minister in the city of Boston. His owner gave him the name Onesimus. It's mentioned in the Bible. He was a slave. The person was a slave in the Bible. This slave is said to have introduced the principal procedure for inoculation. This laid the foundation for the development of vaccines. This is what drew my attention to this story. COVID-19 came to mind. If it had not been. Inoculation is the action of vaccinating someone against a disease by introducing infective material. It involved injecting a weak form of a disease into the body as a way of protecting it against the disease. In the early 1700s, Onesimus shared a revolutionary way to prevent the spread of smallpox. There was an epidemic in the city of Boston that infected half of Boston's residents. The disease took lives of hundreds. It was one of the deadliest afflictions of the time. Smallpox was extremely contagious. It spread like wildfire. Some of the symptoms were fever, fatigue, and a rash that sometimes left disfiguring scars. And in up to 30% of the cases, it killed. It goes without saying that most did not agree with the practice of inoculation for the fact the idea was coming from a slave. His story is similar to others who contributed to medical discoveries and who were not given credit because of their race. To this day, there are no images of Onesimus, his owner, and a surgeon. They claim responsibility for the advancement. Story of our lives. Inoculation paved the way for the development of the first vaccine for smallpox. It was the world's first immunization. Also, smallpox is the only infectious disease to have been entirely wiped out. Past historians were least attentive to the stories of enslaved people. But since the year 2000, there has been an increase in scholarly articles and media coverage about this trailblazer, Onesimus. Also worth mentioning is that in 2016, Boston Magazine named Onesimus as one of the best Bostonians of all time. This took 300 years for this slave to get credit. And he was rightly credited in the year 2016, and this happened in 1721. Sad but true. Nothing is known about this slave in his later life other than the fact he partially purchased his freedom, whatever that means. The owner never elaborated in his diary what partially he purchased part of his freedom. It's documented in the National Library of Medicine that other countries claim the practice of inoculation began in their country. The world may not know or agree on the origin of this practice, but I know it was God who used a slave to save the lives of hundreds in a city called Boston, as well as countless lives that have and are being saved today due to the process of vaccinations. To God be the glory.